Hi, it's me again. I'm back, and with today's video, I'm going to be talking about firstly a quick life update. With my last video, I talked about how optimistic I was going into my new job, and I do like my job, but I just think full-time work isn't for me. I give it an honest try. You can't say I didn't try because it's been how many months, and I'm just like very burnt out and tired, and I don't feel as productive because in Taiwan, the work culture is very much like you're just there to be there, but you can't do anything but focus on work. But I just don't have time to pour into my hobbies or pour into myself, so I've just been so drained and so tired. So I'm probably gonna change that. I'm going to try and film several videos today because with my new job and other things, like quick update, with my new job and other like responsibilities, I just don't have that much time. I think it's because I'm working full time and I'm probably going to change it. So I'd rather, have a better work life balance. I think that's more important to me. But that's it for that update. I'm not going to go too in depth. The main thing that I want to talk about today is how I knew I was a lesbian. So this is a really funny topic. So a few things that I want to talk about. The first thing was the self hate because I grew up in a very religious background, so there was a lot of religious trauma that I had to deal with, and it wasn't something that I was really or willing to unpack. And that's what's so funny about it because I was like, no, I don't need it, I don't need it, I don't need it. And then over time, I'm like, okay, yeah, I need to like realize why I'm so fearful of this thing. And the other thing, I think I talked about this before, is how pretty much everybody knew I was gay before I knew I was gay. Like I was in the deepest pit of denial. I was like, no, I'm not gay. I'm strictly dickly. That's the thing I used to love to say to my friends. I'm like, I'm straight, I'm straight, I'm straight. Even in one of my middle schools before I transferred, somebody found like one of my journals and I wrote bi question marks. So I was like, am I bi? Because I had so much more interest in girls than I did in guys at that time. So I was like, oh, but like obviously I have to also keep the window open for guys because I was in such an aisle. So somebody found it and they pointed it out, and I made up a terrible lie because I'm terrible at lying. One, because I have a bad memory, and two, because it's just obvious when I'm lying. So I said, no, I was like playing this game because we had a Connect at home, like the Xbox Connect, and one of the apps or games that we would play is like a fitness game, and there was like a bicep workout, and it had like, what was it? It had like yoga, it had kickboxing, and it had some other stuff. And I was like, no, because I was doing a bicep workout on my kickboxing thing. And then the next time somebody asked me, I said I was looking into bicycles. So then I guess the people crossed, I don't know why they cared so much, but they like cross notes. They're like, oh, you're lying because you told so and so that it was about a bicycle, and the other person you told it was about a bicep. And I was just like, that's like my only strong memory that I have from middle school, is being caught out on being a liar about being bi. I didn't say that at school for much longer anyway, but after that, I was like really, really, how do I say? I talked about this before. Like my family member, I'm not gonna say specifically who, but they will always be like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell on you because you said that that girl was pretty, and you kept looking at that girl, and you kept smiling at that girl, and you talked to that girl, blah 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 blah. Are you gay? Are you gay? Are you gay?" And people always ask me that. And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no." But I think my first girlfriend I had in kindergarten, and I had pretty much a girlfriend all K through six, all K through six. Like we did some really questionable things, but it was like I always had a girlfriend, but I would also always have a boyfriend as well. But I just didn't like being with the boys because they were just, ugh, like I didn't like the attention or the focus from them. So I would always go back to the girls. So I was kind of a hoe when I was a kid, but like that's one thing that I remember. There was like this one relationship that I had that was like on and off again, on and off again, on and off again. But it doesn't matter because anything before, in my opinion, anything before you go to college doesn't really count as a relationship. That was like the main thing that I would use as an excuse to be like, oh, all those girls that I dated, it doesn't matter, it doesn't count. The denial was so crazy. Like even now, I know it's all BS because like I was kissing girls. I was kissing girls. I was going to the bathroom with girls. Doing all types of stuff, and I'm like, this isn't gay though because I'm not an adult yet, so therefore it's not real. Oh my gosh, the delusion. It was just too strong. It was too strong, but that's okay. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to talk about was like how I denied my identity, like being non-binary. I pretty much never really felt a lot of identity with like being a woman or being female or all that other stuff, because I'm just like, it's just a body, it's just a place. Like even when I was a kid, like I tried to mutilate my chest because I started to get like development there, and when I got caught about it, I just admitted it. I'm like, oh, I have like a flat chest like a man, and I like that. the response from my family was quite bad. So that's like when I started to say, oh, this isn't normal. I need to accept myself. I need to do these things. Like one of the first forms of protest that I did is I wouldn't wear bras. Like I thought that that was like, oh, if I don't wear a bra, then therefore I'm not a girl. And that was like in my head as a kid, but I didn't really have the words for it. I'm just like, it feels more comfortable to not do that. So something that I'm looking forward to once I get my top surgery. But that was like one of the biggest things that I would deny. And the other thing is like just being a lesbian. I'm like, no, this is just my very close friend. Like this is my friend that I care about so much, but I'm not gay. I promise I'm not gay. And I would tell people that all the time. Like I would literally be like holding hands, cuddling, doing all this stuff, and be like, oh, this is my girlfriend, like my girlfriend, like not in a gay way, like just my girlfriend. And everyone can see it. Like I feel like the house is made out of glass because people always point out to me and say like, it's so clear that you're gay. Why can't you just? But I'm like, no, I'm not gay. I like boys. I like boys. I promise I like boys. Lies. Anyway, the other thing is, I had this identity in my head because like when you come from a religious trauma and you have like things done to you as a kid, like people just say, oh, it's just because you have a fear of men, blah blah blah, because of your trauma. But I know plenty of people who have also gone through things like I've gone through and they're still straight. So I don't think that that's like a big indicator. I think people just look for victims and they find victims and who they find victims in. Like maybe there is a correlation and causation between someone being gay and someone being like preyed on as a child, but I don't know about that. I'm not gonna make that connection. But for me, I don't think it had anything to do with that. Like yeah, I did have a strong fear of men for most of my childhood, but even then I was still, like I said before, like I still had relationships with boys. I just didn't feel like any connection, any satisfaction, any validation, or just any attraction in any of those relationships. Like even in college, like, I had a whole phase and I was probably like the ideal person to have like flings with and like hookups with because I literally did not care. I'm like, okay, so are we gonna hook up again this week? Okay, cool. And they want to talk about their family, I don't care. They want to talk about their life, I don't care. Just wham bam and then get out. Like that was literally my mentality because I'm like, I'm not even getting that much out of this. It was like more like a power thing for me, and it made me get like, how do I say, like I said this before, like I would only be like hooking up with guys who all the girls around me would say is like hot or attractive. So I'm like, oh, because the girls like this boy, this means this boy must be attractive, therefore I should be with him. And I don't know, I'm just like a very charming and attractive person, so obviously like guys were obsessed with me, so I could pretty much get whatever guy I wanted, so I would get them. And then after, you know, I got the hookup or whatever, I'm like, oh, this was trash. I would just say to my friend like, oh, you know that boy you got a crush on? I got with him. It was just kind of shitty, but it's like it wasn't like a, how do I say this? I'm not even gonna justify it. It just wasn't a good thing to do. I just wanted to prove like, oh, I can be with guys and that will be okay. But I was like never really into guys. So then I started like, after I left my first college and I transferred to the other college, I, how do I say this? I started dating guys who were like just very effeminate. Like before the term femboy became popular or whatever, like I knew about it because I just read a lot of un, unnamed things. I'll just say that. And I had like those type of boys where I'm like, oh, this boy looks like a girl. And I'll always, this is like the gayest thing ever. I'm like, can you send me the filter? Like, it would be so funny, ha ha ha, if you sent me the filter, ha ha, with you with the girl outfit on, ha 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 ha. Like, you know how they have those filters that would like make a boy look like a girl? And I would literally save those on my phone as their contacts. So when they called me, I'm like, oh, I got a call from my girlfriend. Like, at one point, it was so bad that I was like, maybe I could just date a guy and then like brainwash him into being a trans girl. Because I was like, if I admit that I only like girls, like then I will be an abomination or a sin or whatever, blah blah blah. But eventually I unpacked that. It took me like a year and a half. And then I made my coming out post. Let me see. I might put it in the video, but I'll just read it. It's like really sad, but also not that sad when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. Because, you know, I didn't want to say too much at I didn't want to say too much at that time because it was like, it's fine, like this is just enough. And it's like this post. This is in 2021, and it was like a couple weeks before I came to Taiwan, which is how you know how cowardly I was, because I didn't say anything to anyone around me until I knew that I could flee, because I'm like, oh, if anybody's like homophobic or violent like in my immediate reachable group, then they won't be able to hurt me. I had already like disconnected myself from like family and disconnected myself from pretty much everything else that was bothering me at that time, but I still felt like I was living in a lie because of some things and some choices that I made at that time. Like I was homeless at one point, that's like documented on my channel, and I was also just like around people to like get back into a sense of normalcy, because I was still like in denial with a lot of things about myself, and eventually I got over it. But anyway, back onto the topic. It says, hi all, I'm not going to make this dramatic. My friends have known for a while I'm a lesbian. This is something I denied for many years, but I'm good now. FYI, I prefer they and them pronouns. Enjoy y'all's day. And then that was like it for the post. And I got like some pretty decent responses. Like people who I thought would be more crazy about stuff, they were fine. And the people who weren't okay, they just didn't say anything. So it was fine. And I was literally toiling for years and unpacking all this trauma and like hating myself and questioning like my whole identity. And it like didn't matter. Like I just posted it and then I like literally turned my phone off. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna like sit in this for a couple days. And then when I turned my phone back on a couple days later, like the people who I really cared about, like my actual friends, they had already known. So like, okay, it's about time that you posted this. But in other regards, it was completely fine. Yeah, that's like something that I felt was really affirming and really validating. So it just like solidified in my mind that if people care about me and they're actually good for me, they'll support me in whatever decisions I make and be there with me. Like even some people who I was really, really scared about because I'm close to these people, but obviously they're like quite religious. And that was something that I also felt a lot of shame for because I tried to go back into religious groups and everything because I was just in such deep denial where I'm like, oh, if I go into this group and they're okay with me, like it'll be fine. But that community was like completely fine. I don't really keep in touch with many of them anymore since I moved to Taiwan, but none of them ever gave me any grievances and they were quite open-minded, which is why I preferred going to that church while I was still going to church compared to the other church that I was going to, which was not welcoming. It was very like homophobic. And at one point, I think I talked about this in one of my videos. They were like, oh, like no one should be prideful about anything because they were upset about Pride Month. And then literally the next month they had like a 4th of July thing. And I was like, these people are all a bunch of hypocrites. And this is the type of faith community that I don't want to be a part of. But the other faith community that I was a part of was very like awesome. There's still a lot of them who I'm friends with on my private social media, and I've not had any issues with them. So I just want to say it's not everybody who is like that, and that also made me feel more comfortable because I'm like, this place isn't as judgmental as like other places. Like, yeah, there was comments from certain people like, oh, we're gonna have kids, we're gonna do these things, and I knew that that wasn't what I wanted, but I was like, oh, if this is what it takes to be a part of this awesome community, like I can force myself to do this even if I'm miserable. But it ended up not even being a thing because I ended up coming to Taiwan. Yeah, so that's how I knew. And like moving on from them, like it was like a lot of the standards and like things that I thought were deeply entrenched in my personality or weird romantic preferences that I had that I thought were just me being like different or nonchalant or other things about myself. But over time I just realized no, I was just gay. And on social media I get a lot of posts like that. Like right now I do have a serious girlfriend, and that's not something that I'm embarrassed about, and it's something that I wanted to talk about for a really long time. But every time I date people, I don't know, I just feel like when they find out about my family stuff or I'm trying to get to know them, it's just like a lot for people. And I understand that. And I don't try to like push it on to them. But this girl's like somebody who I really, really care about and somebody who I've known. We've been talking for a really long time. And over time, like everything that I tell her, everything that we can talk about, like it's just so much support and validation and just pure raw attraction that I'm happy with myself because I'm like, why did I prevent myself from having this for so long? And I just feel like it was a lot of instances where I feel I wasted my time or other people were wasting my time or everybody's just wasting each other's time because of trauma, I guess, you know? And it's not like she's the first girl that I dated, but it's like the first girl where I knew I had to like change myself and be better and try. Because I said this before on my page, like there was a lot of friendships that ended with people because they felt like I wasn't vulnerable, I wasn't open. Like I was pretty much the problem fixer in the friend group, but I was never open with other people. Like everything I kept to myself. So which just showed like people that they like I couldn't trust them because I wanted to be everybody else's problem fixer, but I didn't want to tell other people my problem. And even when I was dating, this was a similar problem where there wasn't any chemistry with other people. So I was like quite upset because I wanted to find a person, but I was like kind of rushing things and hoping to make something work that was never going to work just because I was tired of being alone. But I also realized that that's not healthy. So I just took more time to reflect on myself. And then at the time when I was least expecting it, at the time where I wasn't really trying, I like met the best person who I've met pretty much in my whole life. So I just want to say like this video is about me and my experience, but I also just want to say like it's natural to have these things go through your head and question things and be in that way. But I think like once you allow yourself to be emotional and be vulnerable and put in the work that you want to prove to somebody that this is what you want and they're who you want and you want to build a future with them, eventually you'll be more happy. Like if it's coming from somebody like me who struggles with expressing myself and being like emotionally vulnerable, like I don't know if you watch my old videos, like you can probably tell like the growth that I went through because before it was like I always wanted to make people laugh. I always wanted to entertain other people. I wanted to make sure other people knew that like I was there to support them, but I didn't really pour into myself. I poured into other people, and which just I'm not gonna say this about everybody, but there were certain people who I attracted that were no good for me. And now that I'm older and I can reflect on those things, and I know that external validation just isn't what I need. Like I took even courses in college about this, about self-love, self-worth, self-validation, and it helped me to unpack so much trauma. I was still in therapy at that time too, and I did a lot of work on myself, and just the benefits and the outcome is amazing. Like it was hard to do that work because I really had to reflect on myself, where I was like, things didn't happen in the way that people would claim that they happened, but I could see where they were coming from because I have a very strong personality, and that's something that's never going to change. But I would always try and like minimize my personality, or I was quite demanding as well, because in the household that I grew up in, like being emotionally manipulative was the norm, like just blackmail and all this other stuff, emotional blackmail. And other like forms of abuse. So even though I wasn't that to other people, I had like a softer version of it, and people just got tired of it because I was always very negative. I was always like I would make I would make like dark jokes, like my whole personality about like my trauma and stuff like that. And the other big thing that I would always do, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It's just, I think it's manipulation. I think that's the simplest way. I'll explain it, but I would basically be like, oh, if you loved me, you do this, or if you cared about me, you do this, because like that's what I grew up with. So I thought that that was normal, and eventually people get tired of it because they're like, this is like always what you're doing. This is always what you're saying, and I don't want to be around someone who's like this. And people would never say it to my face. It was like always over a text message, and it was a long text message, and it took years for me to like accept that, internalize it, and like actually fix myself. So there are plenty of people in the past who I've heard, and people who I tried to reach out to and apologize and be like, oh, I'm sorry that I was this person for you. But, you know, you can't do that for everybody. Like, especially when people don't want closure. So I just had to let that go in myself and realize that I didn't need closure. But back onto being gay, like, it was just a hard thing for me because of everything that I went through growing up. So I just felt like this wasn't normal. This wasn't acceptable. Like, I had to just be miserable. Like, even in my childhood, because this is before gay marriage was legalized, I will always say, like, oh, I'll just find a gay guy and marry him. And for my closest friends, I told them this, so this is like probably not something new. Most of those people I'm not friends with anyway. But I would always joke like I'm just gonna find a gay guy and marry him, and then just never do anything, because I thought that that's what my life would have to be. And I was like, oh, and I'll have like a girlfriend on the side in secret. But in my mind, I was like, oh, this still isn't gay though, because I don't know, like it was just like such a weird cognitive dissonance. Like I would say the gayest shit and idealize the gayest stuff, but in my mind, I was like, no, this can't be like. So I'll do something else to like make up for it so I can still count myself as straight. But it's just pure delusion and denial. But even now, like on my social media feeds, like it just recommends me the gayest stuff, where it's like stuff that you said that you would never do for a man, or things that you would never settle for. It had nothing to do with the fact that it was that guy, you're just gay. And I realized that too for myself, because even when I was like deeply in relationships, like the person always liked me, and the guys always liked me way more than I liked them, and they would like always kind of pressure me into saying how I the L word and all this other stuff, but I never really meant it. And I would say that I'm like, I don't know if I feel that way about you. Actually, I don't think I feel that way about you. And I'm like, oh, just say it until you mean it. And like one of the last relationships that I had with a guy, I was like, yeah, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like I'm forcing myself to do this stuff just so I can like have one more conversation to have with my friends about what like. And then I just took a break. And one of my closest friends, my best friend, I'll admit that now, because I just had so much fear about best friendships growing up because of trauma and stuff, and being like used, or people telling all my business to family members who I didn't want them to tell it to, or just other people in general. So I became quite secretive. I think that's why I was so closed off about stuff, and that was quite frustrating for people who cared about me. But like my best friend, she told me, she's like, you haven't been in a relationship in what, 2-3 years? I was like, yeah, since I came to Taiwan, like I've just been single. And she's like, how does that feel? And I had to like stop and think and reflect about that, because for me, I didn't really care. I was like I've dated and stuff. Like I can't say I haven't dated, but I've dated a lot, and I just didn't like, it didn't bother me. And then literally the week after we had that conversation, I met like my boo now, my girlfriend, my everything, my wifey. So I'm just like, I don't want it to be like this whole thing where I can only be happy with her. And I know I have like BPD, I have bipolar, I have anxiety, I have all this stuff. So like that's something that I disclosed to her, and she's so supportive, and she literally is like, whatever you need, like I'll be there for you. Like I told her like she's an enabler, and she's like, if that's what you need, then I'll do it. So it's like quite good for me, but it's also something that I'm trying to balance out and not just like go full crazy and I'm like obsessive. So I'm like trying to manage myself and manage my emotions, but we're quite happy. So I think that's all that matters in the end. Like I just want to say, this is my main point of this video is, I knew since I was young, but it was something that I denied myself because of the upbringing that I had and the beliefs that I held. So I thought that this was something that was abnormal. And if I tried hard enough, or I prayed hard enough, or I met the right person, I could force myself to separate from this idea. But that's just not realistic. So I want to say, if you feel any type of attraction to a girl, when you're with guys, you feel miserable, you feel disgusted by them, you feel, it's not like full disgust, it's just like a little bit of repulsion. Like if they want to lean in or kiss or hug you or anything, and you feel nothing, or you're feeling like just grossed out by their presence, or you're trying to justify in your head or imagine them as someone else to tolerate their existence, you're probably gay. Like, or ace or arrow, like that's also a possibility. But just be open to that and accepting that, and don't keep trying to like force yourself to be like cishet. That's something that I just want to say from my personal experience, because the longer I did that, the more exhausted I felt. Like even right now, I'm still trying to experiment and do more things with my outward expression, because I'm tired of people just looking at me and going, oh, woman, woman, woman. And that's just been an issue here. Because my style is very, how do I say, it's like teacher casual. Like I pretty much dress like a teacher. But no matter what, like since I have the chest, people will assume woman. And my face is also quite feminine, so I'm trying to think about what I can do about that. Like I don't really want to go on T, because that's not something that I feel the need for. Like I'm just revolted by masculinity in general, and I just, once my like top is done, I feel like I'll be fine, and people will stop assuming about me. Or maybe, I don't know, I just maybe exercise, be more bulky, something, and that's just something that I need to work on, because yeah. So that's my video for this one. I'm going to film another video after this, because I don't really have that much time to film, and I'm hoping that I can edit again later. But yeah, that is my experience knowing that I'm gay, how you might come to figure out you're gay, repression, self-denial, defense mechanisms, fear, avoidance, all that stuff is good and natural. But at the end of the day, you need to come to be who you are and accept who you are. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. Unless you need to add something in, which I'll put in over edit, but I'm going to say that, and peace. Bye.